Standing By, the Terry and Ted podcast, is sponsored by the UPS Store Canada.
Just go. You know, it's kind of interesting. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts lately, and everybody has a different way of introducing a podcast. Some have a lot of razzmatazz at the beginning. Some people play a clip. Some people are big stars. They don't need to do anything. You know, like Jason.
That would be us.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, so we could just do this
Yeah,
then.
we'll just start.
Hello, Ted Bird.
How do you do, Terry Monte?
Nice to be back, season 6.
Yes, it is very
How
nice
about
to be
that,
back.
Eh?
Yeah.
When we started this little thing, I thought, well, you know, if we do 5 or 10 episodes, it'll be great.
Yeah.
So this has turned out quite nice. Thank you
This
very
is
much.
season 6. That means we've done 50.
Wow.
5-0. Look
Is
at
that
us.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm always fascinated by people who say, "What time is your podcast on?" So if you're
Well-
listening to the podcast, I'm sure you've downloaded it, or if you're watching it on YouTube.
It's on whenever you want it to be on.
I bought a notebook for
at
this
you.
season. Look at this fancy pink notebook I
Yeah.
bought for the podcast.
It's not pink. It's fighting salmon.
We do have a guest in the studio, and before we get started, first of all, thanks to you for downloading the podcast and supporting the podcast and going to the Standing By social media sites. We appreciate that very much on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. You can follow us there. We appreciate that. A big thank you to our podfathers. We should thank them again, Ted.
We should. Pantelis and Mike Ward, who provide us with the facilities and infrastructure and have supplied us with our producer, Poseidon.
Yes.
Hi, Poseidon.
Hello, Poseidon.
Oh, how you doing? How you doing?
We're back.
Pretty good.
Yes.
And I'm pretty pleased to say that we've got a couple of new sponsors who have joined us for season 6. One is Accutech Electrical. We'll tell you about them as the show goes forward. And also, I'm pleased to say we are sponsored in season 6 by Sugar Sammy.
How about that, eh?
Sugar Sammy has sponsored the podcast. We'll tell you more about that coming up. As we move into season 6, we start with our thanks to David Drucker and the people at the UPS Store Canada. They are our, what do we call them?
Title sponsor.
Thank you. I always forget the word title. Title sponsor of the Standing By podcast with over 370 stores across the country to help you with your small business, to help you with private things. I was looking on the website today, which is the upsstore.ca, by the way. That's where you'll find a location near you. They also have a small business blog there that gives you some business tips if you're running a business from home. And there's some tips there on how to prepare for a long-distance move. Last week, I had a pair of broken glasses that I wanted to ship to my friend Imre Littrasitz here in Montreal so that he could fix them and I could pick them up while I was in Montreal. Went to my UPS store. You go to the UPS store and you hold up the glasses and say, I need to ship these to Montreal. And they take care of it.
Nobody in Vancouver knows how to fix glasses?
Nobody that I trust.
Okay.
Yeah. I miss a lot of things about Montreal.
Yeah.
And
Littrasitz apparently being one of them.
Yeah, they're one of
And
them.
that's where the UPS store comes in.
That's right. The UPS store, over 370 locations. There's one, I'm telling you, around the corner from you, run by an entrepreneur just like you. Or, you know, if you want to send that coffee dish, to your aunt across the country.
Auntie Griselda.
Auntie Griselda.
Yeah.
What's a coffee dish?
I have no idea.
Okay, I'll shut up now. We have a guest that we've been ignoring, which is what we always do when we start the podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty excited about this because I haven't seen Bobby for a long time, and I'm going to allow you to do the introductions, Ted.
Bob Merrier is a longtime friend and acquaintance of ours. We've known Bob I've known Bob for as long as I've known his brother Pete, so that's about 35 years.
Yes.
Bob is an interventionist, a sobriety coach, the founder and CEO of Hired Sobriety. I knew Bobby back in the day when we were all still drinking and drugging, and we used to say, Jesus Christ, it's Bobby Merrier. Let's get the fuck out of here before he sees us. Now I've known Bobby for almost 20 years in sobriety, and we'll see him at an AA meeting and say, Jesus Christ, it's Bobby Merrier. Let's get the fuck out of here before he sees us. You know that's just a joke, right, Bob?
Well, and he's heard it before, hasn't he? You've heard it.
Yes, of
You've
course.
heard it before,
I
Bobby?
have. And that, by the way, before was when I was working on that's how I got my degree, you know. My experience is my expertise, so that's where I got my expertise.
Bob is also on Instagram as at sober_coach.
Yep.
Right? With 1 million followers.
Wow.
1 million followers?
You know what's crazy? I post once a year now.
How did you get 1 million followers?
Vice made me
That's
popular.
right. Yeah, there's
Vice made me popular. It was really that.
Did you
I
say
really
Vice,
work
Bobby?
at Vice.
Vice.
I did.
Yeah, Vice did a documentary on Bobby.
After working Rob Ford, they did a documentary on me, and it's been it's insane. It's been seen like 20 million times.
Wow.
So, and it's been seen in countries that, it's not even in English. I've seen it in Chinese, which is kind of interesting.
Wow.
No business from China yet, but I'm holding out that maybe I get some. Probably gambling issues there, but it didn't sort of snowballed itself. I think while I was building it, I had like a team and we were feeding this machine and an algorithm, and it took off. I was verified 3 weeks after I opened my account, which is kind of crazy.
It is.
And I didn't even ask for it. It was done.
It is.
So someone at Vice had sent over the original or whatever, how it worked. I don't know how that, and I never even really held too much with it, but held too much credence to it. For business, the only people that want to advertise with me are rehabs that are like the most unscrupulous rehabs on the planet. Hey, how about we collab? And I'm like, yeah, so I'll sell my real estate for something that I cannot do. And it's not something I ever wanted to
Was
do.
interventionist and what did you say? Sobriety coach. Sobriety coach. Were those terms you came up with, Bobby?
No, an interventionist has been around for Vernon Johnson. This is a guy that in the 50s came up with the idea of doing a Vernon Johnson style intervention. And the intervention word itself has been around the English language forever, but it's to sort of like business as usual is over by means of an intervention. And like, I come in and I get called. I don't have to sell my services. When they call me, like, we've had it. You flag on the play. Let's get this person, whatever that issue is. And pretty well, they're always the same issue. The family of origin is, I'm not trying to do therapy on this person. I'm trying to get this person from either pre or post jackpot to a safe place where he can start the healing process of his recovery. I don't hold their hand. I don't pull them there by coercion. You can't bring anyone in. People are like, what do you have handcuffs to take them away? No, that's called forcible confinement. You go to prison for that. And you bring the family together. They're concerned. You, on that day, bring them that they have a consensus and we're all paddling the boat in the same direction. The intervention job itself is, it's not for everybody. You're going into a place where, am I allowed to swear on this podcast?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Fuck
absolutely.
yeah.
Okay, so just in case you want to know, like when I go in the door, it's like motherfucker, cocksucker, like that's good morning for me.
Yeah.
And it's it's the worst day for the family, worst day for the person, and it's also the best day. They just don't know it at that time. Ted, you've been privy to seeing a lot of people I've actually worked with, and they usually say that. I fucking hated this guy, but now I love him.
Yeah.
And it's usually the tail. And then if you show me any family that has someone with substance abuse disorder, there's a banker and there is a janitor. Someone's paying for this shit and someone's cleaning it up. So families, and one person's got it, the whole family's sick. And they don't realize you're either covering up or lying or... It's a terrible
Enabling.
thing. Yeah, enabling behaviors.
Yeah, let's go back. Let's backtrack and go to the beginning and talk about your own intervention, your history, and how you got sober, which is going on 20 years now, right? You're at 19?
January will be 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, a day at a time, realistically.
Yep.
I'm not going to take it before January 3rd, but
No.
I mean...
Hey, that's Terry's birthday.
That's my
Is it
birthday.
Bobby got sober on your birthday, Terry.
And, there you go.
Happy sober day.
I got sober for for Terry. What the hell? I came by it really. What people don't seem to understand is they see the end product now. I was so unhappy from age 15 to 39. I can't quantify that type of low-grade depression and really lost in who I wanted to be. I was incapable of school. I got a really bad learning, attention deficit disorders. When you're born in 1965, they said you had a problem. Like, if you could only settle down or harness that power. There's no harnessing the power when you have ADHD. It doesn't exist. What's my favorite color? Shiny. And I'm gonna run into things that nothing could keep me focused. And make no mistake, I started feeling less than at a young age, and then I carried it over. Like I try and tell people, like I think there's years. I come from a big family. You guys know my brother Peter. You've worked with him forever. It was sad. And I have this big loving family, and I had this low-lying, like you see pictures of me from Christmases from years back, and I can see these sad eyes. And I've never done my job, ever, gone in to intervene on someone and haven't seen, hey, I'm looking at the eyes. I can tell by the eyes how much pain they're in.
Let's start at the beginning, Bobby. Where did it start? Was it a beer and then a martini and then a joint?
Oh, you're gonna love this.
Yeah, where does the slide begin?
At 13, remember we had Brador in Canada?
Yeah, I sure do.
Brador, the strong beer with the gold label on top.
Yeah.
Classy. I remember getting drunk on that. And the first time I felt the heat, it comes in your chest the first time you drink, and you're like, that buzz kicked in. I was like, okay, I like this. And I sort of made it be like, I'm going to identify as Bob, take it now, ask questions later.
How old were you?
13.
Okay, wow.
And the first time I drank, I woke up on the front step of our house on Dollard in Fredmere. Like there was a shoe missing, and like my parents bought me shoes when I was 13 years old. I didn't buy them, and they were Stan Smiths, which cost money. My dad was, that was the height of goddamn extravagance, you know? and I had lost the shoe, which to this day I've never found. But I woke up the next day and people said, do you remember what you did? And like stuff that a normal person would be, oh shit, man, I never want to do that. And I sort of, I said, I'm going to hang my hat on this. This is who I want to be. And it started there. Like, that depression and sadness. I was having a hard time in school. I had, you have low self-esteem and you're self-centered. You're off to the races with that combination. And name any person until they get into recovery. Those are the two traits of a really good addict or anyone with substance abuse disorder, which means trying to tell anyone something helpful or, the truth is not met by fuck you, fuck off, stay out of my life. Or maybe it sounded like I work hard, I play hard. So I'm a kid and I'm thinking that way. And then scholastically, it's a problem. You're going to find this hard to believe. My dad retired when I was like in grade 7. My dad was retired. So my parents were often on trips. In 1982, my brother John and Peter were in charge of me in my graduating year of high school. Not exactly the most, they're good guys, but it was a bit lax at the Merrier house. And I missed my French oral exam. The only exam I was really going to have an easy time with. All I had to do was go and say my name. I was over an hour late, and they were like, no, you're done. Yeah. So now I cannot, my peer group is leaving me. And you want to feel low self-esteem and self-centered.
What are you saying? Everyone else was graduating, but you weren't.
I wasn't.
Because you
I
missed
had to take
exam.
a year over, and then I ended up missing my English
whole
test.
year?
The whole
Over
year.
missing one exam?
You had to repeat it. Even though all I had to do was go in there and say, je m'appelle Robert Marier. Yeah. I was passing that class. Everything else.
Because as I recall, because I went to PC2, if you didn't get your French, you had to go back.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was French oral, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, which is crazy for
me.
Marier.
For me, yeah, it was easy for me.
Qu'est-ce qui se passe?
And then, qu'est-ce qui se passe? Yeah, I tell you what se passe. Moi, je passe pas. And I tell you, when you ask me what happened, I can identify with this depression I had so much easier now than I could when I was in it. I just always felt a little different.
Well, you understand it.
But when you're that young, is it I drank all that beer and that made that feeling going away?
It made it go away for a bit.
So I'm going to do it again.
Yeah, but my solution is temporary because it's going to continue to hurt. And now let me feast your eyes on this nugget of information. The first cocaine I do, I'm 15, I'm in Hampstead. I have to, unless to injure them or others, which is, I can't identify the names. My friend's dad worked at Merck Frost, and he got us the cocaine. So it was the best cocaine on earth. Forget Pablo Escobar.
Right out of the lab.
Yes, we were getting it right out of the lab.
Wow.
And he had like a giant mustard jar of it.
What year was this?
The first time I did cocaine was 1980.
So this was the 80s when there would reportedly be bowls of it on Hollywood tables.
Yeah, so I wasn't in Hollywood then.
Right.
Wait, my story will take me there.
Okay.
But, it was like, that's the first time I did it, and I was in love with that. I hated cannabis, hated marijuana. I couldn't stand being stoned. I remember my brother bringing me to a Van Halen concert once, and there was like this big pyrotechnics, and like the bomb went off. Everyone was like, "Ooh!" Wow. And my brother said it took like 8 seconds for me to go, "Oh yeah, man." And my brother was like, "Man, I wish it worked like that on me." I was like, "No, you don't." And all I would want to do was eat. So like that sadness, like I talk about it today. There was a lot of fun in there. There was a lot of stuff that it seemed like it was fun, but my ability to navigate life and to mature under a normal maturation process was over. So I was 15 years old when I was 40. When I finally did clean up, and I had this horrible feeling of like, man, I don't have a clue who I am. I don't have a clue who I'm supposed to be. My life is in fucking shambles. Like, it is terrible. I've never completed anything. I was a very good hustler, so I was good at getting one thing to another, extremely good at it, to my own detriment. So when you can do that, you kind of you're prolonging what could happen. And over years, I know now what I know is that my brothers and sisters, so I don't think my brother Peter was running this forefront, but my brothers and sisters, my sisters in particular, were like, we got to do something with this kid. And this is 10 years before.
And you're the youngest, right?
I'm the baby of six.
Of six, yeah.
And they were just had enough. And, my enabler, God bless my mom, because, she was the one that I could, my dad just said, yeah, go hide under her skirt there, Bob. You're going to be okay there. My dad had sort of, I hadn't checked out, but he was like, and I tell people the story. My dad looked through me my whole life. My whole life. He just looked right through me.
Old Navy guy, eh?
Navy
World War II veteran, right?
Exactly. And a guy that didn't suffer fools too well. And he wrote me a note once in high school. I didn't even read it. It was April 1st. And he said, please, Robert is late. They had to go. It says, today is April Fool's Day and Robert is a fool. And when I read it at the office, everyone started laughing at me. I was like, I never looked at the note because I come in late. He had brought me to the dentist and he's like, okay, whatever. And that's the note he wrote. So he was an excellent. I had nothing but great memories of my mom and dad. Like I never heard them raise their voice at each other. You can ask any of them, Mary and Klein, they were in love. They was lovely. But
was your dad still alive when you got sober?
Yes, 9 years when he passed and I was sober.
Excellent.
And he got to see me, he was so proud of the fact that he didn't understand. He knew he paid for rehab, but he thinks that they turned me off, Yeah. He didn't understand the deeper parts of it. But he was really proud to tell, whereas he never was proud of me. He died at the military at the St. Anne's Hospital. Yeah. And he would tell the guys there, my son pulled himself out of the ditch. And then we come to find out later, like these family secrets, because we didn't talk about it. Substance abuse disorder was a shameful thing. You couldn't talk about it. And I had uncles that had drank themselves to death. We didn't know about it. And it turns out my uncle Rene didn't just like smoking 3 packs of Players a day and drinking Cheminot brandy. That's what he died from at 30-something years old. Jeez. So they all had this sort of. My dad had seen it firsthand, but he didn't know how to stop it.
Well, I also think back then they didn't really talk about it, right?
No, it's a shame.
Yeah,
it was a moral failing. Yeah, it wasn't a disease.
Yeah.
So, and again, I think like I got so lucky that I was able to get good help. Once I did, they hired an interventionist, my family, and here I am in California. I don't talk about it. I say I had like an accident. I don't like telling people like, I was shooting dope at this time and bad things happened. I tell people I ended up in an emergency room and in a rather bad situation. I had fractured my skull. I'd had an overdose. There was all kinds of shit was going on. And I'm in California, and my brother John, who was in RSPCs, and he was a finance guy, and my brother Mike, both these guys have kids, and they're dispatched in 2004 to go get their brother in January. They go down and they find me in California in a hospital. I'd been in a hospital for 3 weeks. Like, I was messed up. Wow. And my first words out of my mouth, it could happen to anybody. I just miscalculated. Like, just ridiculous thought, just the denial, all that.
What
sort
happened?
Of deflecting. I ended up, having an OD. And I ended up being, my mom was always, she's gone now, so she can't get upset. She was like, you don't really have to talk about the hard part. And even when I got into my recovery, my mother was like, you think you could drink safely? I'm like, Ma, I can't drink wine or like beer. It's over, But again, she didn't know better. And like I said to you, I ended up in the hospital. My brothers come to get me, and then I get told, you got to go to a detox. I go to a detox, and
Excuse me, Bobby.
What?
You really wake up and think, oh, I just miscalculated.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just did the math wrong.
Completely fucking.
Isn't that
absolutely just
like
it just
on the
this
death
is a horrible mistake.
Right, you just did the math wrong. You're on death's high wire, but you think, oh no.
Yeah,
I'll do better next time.
And I can remember my brother's faces looking at me, and they had a job to do. They had to get me to go to treatment. And, you know, my job is done. Everything's fucking a disaster in California. I've packed up my stuff and I'm like, okay, well, I guess I could go. And my thinking is I'm going to get people off my back. Go in there, a few weeks, zip, zip, zoom, zoom. That's it. Detox was hell because you're coming off opiates. You feel like shit. Your skin's crawling. And they now put people on something to help that process, or you can cold turkey. I cold turkey. I'll never forget, there was like gym mats in the bathroom when I arrived. Ew, what's this all about? And I said, well, you're going to find out. I was like, yeah. And the guy's looking at me. I'm on the floor like I can't tell you how awful it is. It's terrible to go through this. And like you're vomiting, your body, the opiates are coming through your muscles and stuff. So you're punching yourself because it hurts so much. Wow. And you go from hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold. You're throwing up. Everything hurts. The capillaries in my eyes, it looked like I had big round glasses on, but it was from vomiting.
Wow. And what were you detoxing from? What
from
substances?
Opiates. I was at that point, my nose didn't work anymore, and I started injecting cocaine. And I started saying, "What you're injecting cocaine?" You're like, "Okay, might as well try heroin." And now you're doing both, and you're like, "Well, now I understand. This is the high standard." And I'm thinking, wow, I wasted a lot of time snorting dope. This is way better. Wow. But it was terrible. And I didn't know how sick I was when I tried to slow down. And I was immediately sick. Like you were getting dope sick within 6 hours.
From withdrawal.
Yeah. So the only thing you can do is keep going. And you know what's happening. And I was like stealing from Peter to pay Paul type thing. I wasn't actually taking any from my brother Peter.
Yeah, I was going to be clear on
that. Can you imagine
have a brother Pete?
Hey, Peter, you owe me, Terry. What are you doing, man? Me, yeah, exactly. Oh my God. But I want to tell you that it was not. I was so fucking lost that I could justify any of the behaviors. I could justify never thinking of how my actions were affecting other people. People that loved me, people that cared about me, people that told me, the truth. And you have a fucking aversion to hearing the truth. You try and mitigate how much people know about you information-wise. So now you're controlling. I used to have a book like yours just to control the fucking lies I was writing down so I could get it straight. Wow. And it was flip phone time when I got sober. And I remember thinking, okay, well, I'd write notes, and remember how hard it was to send a text message?
Yeah, I do.
Fuck.
Yeah,
I was writing like Tolstoy in that fucking thing, putting down notes. So I never thought to myself, wow, I'm a drug addict. Wow, I've got a problem. I remember thinking, I got a problem getting off this. And it was like shameful. It was like beyond shame. I was like, how did I get myself here? But like I said, I like to talk about the good part is that my family ostensibly gets me through the hospital, gets me detoxed. Once I'm detoxed, they take me from California to Montreal.
Okay, let me pause you there.
Yeah.
So how long?
3 weeks.
The gym mat and
that took 5 days,
so
5-6 days.
Is it 5 days before you start to think, oh, this is normal? Like I'm starting.
You don't feel normal.
You don't.
No, I've never had I thought organs were going to come out of me.
Really?
From either side.
That whole 3 weeks you're in detox.
No. The detox only lasted for a week.
Okay.
It was like what they call an acute detox. Today I had a front row seat for what I now know to be. You go to a detox and then you go to an acute care center, which is what we call rehab.
Right.
And so let me just think, I get through that and my brothers are there and they say, we got to take you home. I had fractured my fucking skull when I overdosed. I banged my head into a table. I banged my head so many times, like I played football when it was like, oh, you're throwing up on the field, shake it off, fourth quarter. That's when I played football. Yeah, exactly. And it was pretty bad, severe enough. I was photophobic. I don't know if you know what that is, but I was wearing sunglasses. So you can imagine this kid comes back to Montreal at the end of January. And this happened on January 3rd. I don't remember the dates. It might have been the 21st. I arrived back in Montreal. And my brothers flew me. I had a visa to work, and they didn't want to come in through Canada. So they flew Los Angeles to New York to Burlington on JetBlue when JetBlue was en mode. And then we drove back in the middle of the night. I was wearing hospital pants. It was minus whatever outside. And when I got home, I always get emotional thinking this. My poor mother, we arrive in Beaconsfield, and my mother, it's 2:00 in the morning. I've had a long day. I'm shivering. I've got a blanket around me. I'm shivering even in the hot car. My brothers were like, Bob, it's hot in here. I said, no, I'm fucking shivering. Of course, I'm still in this detox mode. And I get there, and my poor mother meets me at the door, and she says, oh, God, you're home. And she hugs me, and I'm like, I feel this. These are the emotions I was able to alleviate through drinking and using drugs, but they're completely raw to me now. I appreciate that I can feel them. But I'm like, my mom's there at the door saying, you're home, and she hugs me. And I'm like, Mom, minimalize, deflect. Oh, yeah, Mom, I'm fine. Don't worry about it. I go upstairs. We had a den upstairs in Beaconsfield. And I'm like, I'm exhausted. Bang, down on the couch. I wake up the next morning, and the intervention is on. And you know who's not there? My mom. They made damn sure. The guy said, that lady, you're out of here. Your phone, give it to us. Because he's going to go make an end run on you. And my mom, it wasn't that she didn't. She just knew that she didn't have it in her to do what needed to be done.
Mom's her mom, right?
Yeah. And she said that. And I mean, by the way, by the time my brother needed help, my mom was the Iron Lady.
Oh,
She
really?
was Margaret Thatcher. By the time my brother needed help, it was hard as hell. She'd become educated on what the codependent piece was and how she was going to love him to death. Yeah. So I go to rehab, like it happens, and I'm going round and round. I'm going around and around with this. We're going into treatment. I don't want to go. The place no longer exists. It's called Addington House. It's now Andy's house in West Town, but it was at that point Andy's house. They did a lot of work with prisons, the prison system. There was an eclectic melange of people when I arrived there. And I arrived there, let's just say it was an auspicious start. I was literally going, I just said, I'll get these people off my back.
So you're rebelling. You're not rebelling if you want them off your back.
I'm the toughest intervention one of the toughest I've ever seen, and it's my own experience.
Yeah, you don't have the gift of desperation.
I'm going round and round and round saying, fuck this, fuck that, this and that. And my dad said, my sister Tina and my dad were unbelievably hard on me. And my dad said, you leave here today, you do not come back. Do you understand me? Young man, do you understand me? I said, he wasn't blinking. And I was like, okay, he'd had enough of me belly aching and bitching. It had been 3 hours of this. And my sister Tina was very upset, very emotional. And she said, you stay away from my 3 kids. I don't want you passing on what you've got. And she was like, you're fucking dead to me type thing. Was
it tough love or was it just hard?
It was sad. It was tough love. They knew what to do. They bottom lined me. That's what I call it. And I listened to the message, but I'm going to tell you, I went to treatment going, I'm getting them off my back. And then, the crazy things that happen when you go into treatment, I started hearing immediately. I arrived on a Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon, and it was the weekend. Nothing really happened. And I was wearing my sunglasses because I was photophobic. And, I was still, my skin's jaundiced because I don't have a drinking problem, by the way. The first days of rehab, there's a young girl there from the gas bay, and she's like, you're only here for drugs. Well, look at you. And Ted will tell you, people think they can live the clean dream. And Anthony Bourdain was living the clean dream. And how did that end up? You cannot drink. You're no mind-altering substances. I'm there going, I just came here for a little bit of cocaine and heroin problem. I don't have a problem with anything else. They're fucking laughing at me like, oh, really? Listen, Captain Bob of the SS Vodka, we're having lunch on the Lido deck. I was like, I think she's insulting me. She goes, you're in fucking rehab. And I'm like, I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm the most proper human. I've been offended by what this girl is telling me. Again, goes to the truth. And it started there. The next night, and a guy came in who from the rooms, and he's a lovely human being, and he has struggled greatly, and I can say his name because he's cool with it, is Reno. I won't say his last name, but Reno comes in. He's got both arms. He's Italian. He's like, can't fucking communicate. Both arms are in casts. And he's my roommate, and he's a very large man. And he got me on my knees. He said, you're going to read this 3rd step prayer. And I was like, I'm not fucking praying. This is a God thing. I'm not doing it. Fuck this, fuck that. He said, quit. You act like he owes you money. I was like, I just don't want anything to do with that. And he said, you're in rehab. Just fake it till you make it. I was, what does that mean? Like I didn't know any of the education piece to this. And then sure as shit I did. And I started to sort of hear the day one of therapy. This guy, there's 15 people in the group. And this guy, I'm like, how does he know so much about me? I'm astounded. He knows everything about me. And he said, your mom tell you you were special your whole life? I said, yeah.
Is this a counselor?
Yeah. And he said, she lied. You're a garden variety addict. There's nothing remarkable about you. And I remember thinking, that's a tough pill to swallow, but he really knew all of these behaviors. Like 99% of what he was saying, I was like, check done, check done, check done. I was like, okay. So I sort of saw it there for the first time, and about 4 or 5 days later, I was in group, and they were going at it, circular, what they call a process group. And I just started talking about remember the fucking Dairy Queen on St. Charles Road?
I sure do.
Yeah, that was the only one in the West Island.
Yeah.
There might have one on Sources too. I stand corrected, but the one on St. Charles. I remember going there that night. It's an interesting story because Johnny Rogers was there wearing a fur coat.
Johnny Rogers from the Outdoor.
The ordinary superstar.
JR superstar. Yeah, exactly. That's right.
He looked like a pimp, you know. And my dad got us all ice creams, and I was out of the country squire, and this is what I go on to tell the story because it's so interesting. I dropped my cone, and I was inconsolable. He didn't say, "You dumb fuck." He didn't say anything. He said, "Bob, I'll go get another one." And I was inconsolable. He gave me another cone, and that story comes out of me unprompted, and I start crying. I'm like, I don't know where. It's like primal feeling inside me.
How old?
How old was I when this happened? 5. It would have been 1970.
Yeah.
And this old crusty doctor from Boston, or Catherine, I don't remember her last name, and she ended up dying. She drank herself to death. But she was like, she had been to Betty Ford, been to all these rehabs. She said, "I just witnessed you get sober," like while she was chewing on cigarettes and the nicotine patch and everything else. And I was like, "What happened?" And Reno said, "Man, you don't know, but that was really powerful in there." And I was like, "Really? You think so?" But something changed from that little speech where I became willing and in a big hurry. I was like, I got to do this right. I don't want to come back here. There was a piss pad on my bed that crinkled that night. I was like, I never want to come back here. And it really started just there. Like, there was no fanfare. There was no hope. There was the odds of me coming out of this to where I'm at today were slim. But
you're conscious of that turning point.
Yeah, super.
It was there.
Absolutely. Motivation.
It was there.
I poured myself into this, and I knew it. Like, I was like, I can't come in second best here. Like, I have to, and I'm competitive. And I turned my competitive issues into this. I was like, I got to get good at this. This is good enough as not working for me. And I didn't want to live this way anymore. Like, I knew I'd been lying to, like, there was the truth and the truth.
Right.
There were two versions. I needed those to be. I didn't know how sad and broken I was until that moment, and I didn't know how much work there was to begin there. When people tell me you think you quit drinking, all I have to do is quit drinking, well, you're still the fucking problem. And people that, I quit drinking, it wasn't that hard. I've got this. One of my favorite things to hear in a meeting, I'm like, pack a lunch. Like, you're done if you think you've licked this. But the process of getting better started there, and then I really threw myself into, like, I wanted to do everything right. I wanted to get a sponsor, do my steps. I wanted to dig at this therapy piece and do it.
So when you leave there...
Well, that's the story. At 42 days,
yeah,
we're the Sunday of St. Patty's Day's parade. And the guy comes in and says, you have to stay an extra month. They've told me it's a 2-month program. I'm 6 weeks in. You have to take an extra month here of transition. You'll need to ride the bus and to do this. And I'm like, no, that's not the deal. Now I dug in. They call this taking your will back. They said, you have to go get a job at Java U on Monkland. I said, not happening. Not a fucking chance am I going to do that. They threw me out. They gave me 1 hour to think about it. I said no. They gave me my Irish suitcase. They literally put everything in a garbage bag, and they threw me out the front door.
Wow.
And then they told my family, you'll be begging us to take him back in 48 hours. He won't last. Ted, I'm the most spiteful motherfucker you've ever met in your life. And spite motivated me. And like the little things. Ted, you ran into me in Bay d'Urfé with your kids shopping on a Sunday night. I'd just gotten out. I was waiting. It was April. They had lost my passport, and I have now made the decision. I'm going to South Beach, and I'm going to live in a sober house there. I've got a couple of bucks.
So when you leave there, you think, I'll show you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, and I go into meetings, and it took about a month to get a new passport. And when I do go, I leave on Hitler's birthday, April 20th, back to Miami. It's a great time to leave. I'll never forget it. I arrived in a meeting.
Sober on Terry's birthday? How about Hitler's birthday?
You're
keeping good company there, Terry.
Great.
And I go there, and my mother signs off on this, and the rest of the family is like, you just let him off the hook. My brother John to this day says, you owe me a month at Addington. I'm 19 years sober. But the reality is that spite motivated me like nobody's business because I was not going to be fucking denied. And my mother said, like, I'm the only person you got here. Like, my dad's not talking to me, no one is. But I've got some money, and I go to Miami, and I go to a sober living. And Ted, you were just there. You came to visit me last weekend. The recovery's top notch.
Yep.
There's they have a home that they set up in there, and I get to start living this way, and I see so much hope in so many guys that have what I want. They're living their lives. They have multiple years, double-digit recovery, and they're cool dudes. They're not missing anything. My relationship.
This is interesting.
Yeah.
Let's get back to South Beach in just a moment.
Yes.
Because this is an interesting part of the story to me. But we have to take a moment to thank Sugar Sammy.
We do.
I was really, really quite excited and quite pleased and a little bit surprised when Sammy called me and he said, "Tell me about your podcast." And we tried, I have to say, we tried to get him to be part of season 6. But as you know, he puts tickets on sale and they sell out right away. And he's currently on tour across the country. As a matter of fact, when I get back to British Columbia at the almost the end of October, I'm going to go see his show out there. It's really interesting. He's doing French shows in places like Calgary and Vancouver, Winnipeg, places where there are small French populations. He's taken his unbelievable comedy show that you and I saw just months ago on the road. And I know you have notes there, Ted. You've got dates and the fact that these things are selling quickly.
2023 is sold out.
Oops.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're not going this year.
You're shit out of
You're
luck.
not going this year. 2023 is sold out. He has added dates in 2024. Guess what? January sold out.
Okay.
There are February shows though, but tickets are going fast. So go to sugarsammy.com for your tickets. You know why I think part of the reason Sammy called you is he doesn't forget.
Yeah.
Before Sammy was anybody, before he was Sugar Sammy, we saw him. I don't know where we saw him, but we saw him one night, and Terry and I said to each other, "That kid's funny. We should have him on the morning show." When we were still at Showham, and we had him on the morning show, and it generated some ticket sales for him. He has never forgotten
That's true.
that.
Yeah.
He has never forgotten that. That's the kind of person he is. He doesn't forget. He hasn't become a big star who's too good for the people from yesteryear. On the contrary, he remembers who helped him out along the way.
He's sold millions, literally millions of tickets in this country. He's become a huge star in France. Huge star from the French version of America's Got Talent. He's one of the judges, and is just hilarious. You can find it all on YouTube.
Sugarsammy.com.
This particular show he's doing, this bilingual show, no one is spared.
No.
We saw the show and no one is spared, and it's just unbelievably funny. If you've never had a chance to see him, do yourself a favor and get to sugarsammy.com and make sure you find a date that works for you and go see this much talked about show with our thanks to Sugar Sammy.
Have you seen him, Bob? Live?
Guys, you know where you guys saw him? At Bourbon West. That's where you first saw him.
right?
He used to come and do Wednesday nights there. Yeah, he was just like everyone else, trying out, hanging out, like that Montreal. Steve Traynor had really worked hard with Ernie Butler in the early years to make that work on Wednesday nights, and that's where I first saw him. And he was always super active.
Yeah, well, he tells a great story of taking the bus to his gigs. He'd take the bus, he'd jump on the 105 or whatever, and shoot up St. Catherine.
Yeah, you mentioned Ernie. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. And after we had him on. Apparently he got recognized, and he thought, "Oh, there's something going on here with this radio."
Well, he used to joke about how people would call up and go, "Yeah, that guy was on with Terry and Ted, super packy. Where do I get tickets for him?"
Sorry, you wanted to mention Ernie?
Yeah, you brought up Ernie Butler's name. Ernie was a Montreal comedian, a founder of the Comedy Club, actually, the Comedy Nest, a venerable Montreal comedy club. My first kick at the sobriety can, Ernie took me under his wing. And that was 1994. As a matter of fact, the day that we're recording this, I would have been 29 years sober 2 days ago if I had stuck, but I didn't because I was exhibiting a lot of the behaviors Bob was talking about. I'll be okay. I'm fine. I don't need to do. I got this. Yeah.
Is that what you call that?
Yeah. You guys, your steps are very quaint, and good for you guys doing your 12
It's called terminal
steps.
uniqueness.
Exactly.
That's what it's called.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I lasted 14 months not doing anything that you're supposed to do in recovery, and I ended up going back out again. And Ernie I was already friends with him, but he took me under his wing through this period. And one thing I'll always remember about him, and God rest his soul, he passed away he passed away in 2007, I think. But I'll always remember Ernie, when I went back out, he didn't say, "You'll be sorry."
No.
And when I came back in, he didn't say, "I told you so."
I've always felt a little guilty about that because I remember being at your house and I either brought beer or you asked me to bring beer, and I was like, aren't you? And you did that. You went, yeah. It's
No,
okay.
what I'm saying when I do it this time, though, is that's not on you.
No. I
That's
understand.
on me.
But I always felt bad about that. I thought, it was like I put ice down and you tripped over it. Anyway, listen,
It's not Terry's fault.
No,
Okay.
It's not your fault.
slips are a long time in the making.
Yeah.
They're
Okay.
a long time in the
Planned
making.
voyages.
Okay, so I need to ask you now that this explains your tan. I need to ask you about why South Beach. Like it sounds like you went South Beach,
I wanted to.
or did you know
really-
there was something there?
No, I
Okay.
had no idea. It was like, if I'm going to be, it's April in Montreal, it's still not nice. And, I joke now, the cornerstone of my sobriety is my tan. I have not lost my tan since I got sober. I haven't. And people laugh, and it's fast forward to, and first, before I go further, Ernie Butler used to see me at Grumpy's. He'd either play backgammon with Robbie Braid, or he was always in the back there, or with Nick Oftemeyer and stuff. And I was there hanging out with, whatever, leaving there at 7 o'clock in the morning. And Ernie, when I came in, was nothing but gracious to me. He's like, "You're still alive?" and NDG,
bless
I don't
him.
know what meeting. And then he was super nice to me. Like, he called me and checked up on me, and I told him, and that was like my first year. And like I said, you were like, we knew each other, but it was like, fuck, Bob's radioactive, I think Shom used to text 666. I'm not joking either. Like I think if you call Jen Roman, she's like, yeah, if you showed up at an event,
We should explain. We haven't mentioned. Everybody knows who Pete Mary is, and we worked with Pete. Pete's still at Shom, and Pete is Bobby's brother, and so there was, in the days when radio was a big deal,
Right.
and there was a lot of promotions,
There was
and
a lot of
gatherings,
congregation together,
and
yes.
there was a lot of interaction.
Right.
We would pass.
Our
cross
people were
paths.
all like, and think of
Yeah.
like Tim Ellis or, all these old bartenders
Yeah,
and stuff
yeah.
like that we all
Yeah,
knew
we all-
each other.
yeah.
Paul Massey, who's a dear friend of
Yeah.
yours and dear friend of
Yeah,
mine,
yeah.
and Steve Trainer and that. Like, again, talk about guys that had my back when I got sober. These guys, Paul especially used to call me and say, if you could ever harness that power. That line I'd heard my whole life. So you asked me how's South Beach.
Yeah.
I go down there because I want to be in the warmth. I have no idea of the program I've signed up for, other than the fact that it's a sober living. It fits all the boxes I need. I can have therapy and group therapy, as well as all the AA and fellowship meetings I want. There's a clubhouse. I mean, now it's gone full circle. I live less than a half a kilometer from this place. But I go down there, and the level of recovery is high. I mean, they are thrown out at a high level, and it caught on there. And I think that I started to do a lot of therapy on, what had gone wrong, when I started feeling less than, all that sort of stuff that took years to pull the shit out of me. To the stuff where I was blocking stuff, and I had a therapist, and she said, I might have to take a break from therapy for a while, but when you're ready to tell me everything, and she was like, I said, but I'm telling you everything. No, you're not. You know when you're going to be ready. And I remember thinking, wow, that's crazy. And I took to the therapeutic process. I'm highly processed now. I've evolved emotionally. Like, it's crazy. I was like we have like the Marriott, a sick bunch of people, because we had like a ranking system. And before my dad died, I was like 1A. Tina was 1B, or maybe I was 1B. But by the time my mom died, I had grabbed the baton. It was my turn. But I had been successful enough in my recovery that it started to happen very quickly. I didn't have a lot of time to when I went to South Beach, I immediately fell in love with the place, the recovery and that. And then I sort of made it like my home base. I started working very humbly when I got out of there. I just got a job. I needed to hustle. Man, it's crazy. The hustler gens, I didn't care what I was doing as long as I was making money.
What were you doing when you first?
When I first got out, I got a job with an experiential marketing thing. Do you remember you guys remember this? The first year sober, I did the Mexican beach, those experiences. There was like a live beach. I'd park it on St. Catherine Street.
Yeah, I do
Beyond your
remember these.
expectations.
Yeah.
Of course, the hustler and me, I produced the events, live events, Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver. I had learned a few things when I'd been in California about production. So they trusted me with this, a marketing company, and I took it and I made a bundle of money in 1 month. It was an amazing job, and I was able to go right back to South Beach and live I rented a place that winter. So I was able to get these jobs and sort of articulate them, and really I wasn't spending everything I made to destroy myself, which was shocking how much money I spent on, drugs and alcohol. And once I stopped, it became pretty easy. I settled all my accounts with the government. I took care of business. I got arrested in my first year for shit I'd done in the 90s. Like, it was crazy, and I did not drink. In 2004, everything that could possibly be thrown at someone that's new in recovery happened to me.
And that's your first year of sobriety, 2004.
And then I faced the music. I stayed. The lawyer did the continuance on these charges. I had fraudulently taken $100,000 from American Airlines while they were filming the movie Snake Eyes in Montreal. I was in charge of logistics. And when the production closed, I was like, man, there's still all this money in the account, and American hasn't cashed the checks. Guess I'll write one to me. Okay. 96.
And are you in sobriety at this point?
No, this was 96.
Okay. All right,
and then 8 years later, I'm paying the piper for that.
Yes.
I get stopped. I became, like I said, I had nice cars. Remember the Chrysler 300 came out in 2004. I had one of the first ones in Montreal. I was driving. I went to a CA meeting on a Sunday night, and I'm driving over after 32nd Avenue. I'm roasting. There's no one on the road, and the engine blows. Like, the hood comes right up. The car's on fire. Like, pistons are out. Like, I'm pulled to the side of the road.
Brand new car?
Brand new car. And I pull to the side of the road, and the QPP shows up, and they're super dignified with me. Hey, there's a bench warrant for your arrest. And I'm like, oh, what could that be? I know damn well what it is. And I'm like, oh, okay. Wonder what this could be. Fiddly. And then they take me to the QPP places where IKEA was. And it's quite nice. I'm comfortable there. And then they call the MUC cops who pick me up and throw me in the back of a urine-infested, feces-infested van and throw me into the cold. And it was December 6th, and I remember dates. And I got charged with all these charges.
And this was from the Snake Eyes 100 grand thing.
Yeah, it was $100,000. Lived well on that. It lasted me a good year. I was living high on the hog. Really successful. No, I stole
Pay to the
money.
order of me.
So what was the upshot of all that?
I took 3 years to go through the courts. I stayed sober. I really had to stay sober. There was no fucking around. And I'll never forget it. After 3 years, I had letters from the priest and some people I had helped, and I had a very big businessman that I had helped, and, wrote these lovely ringing endorsements, and, kind of like no one would ever speak of me this way before. And the judge said, okay, whatever that day, my lawyer had made a deal, and he said, we've got him. We're good. We're getting an absolute discharge. I said, is that good? He said, you have to elocute in court and say you're guilty of this, but he's going to remove it immediately. And you have a peace bond for 2 years. He goes, this is the best outcome you could ever get. You were looking at trouble here. And I owed American Airlines all that money. I had made restitution over those 3 years. I kept giving them $1,000, whatever I could afford. It ended up being almost $40,000. But American Airlines was in receivership in 2007, and they were only taking 25 cents on the dollar. And the French-Canadian judge, well, what the hell? 25 cents on the dollar. He's paid his fine, no problem. Drop the gavel and done. So there's
God is doing for us
what I could not do for myself.
ourselves.
And that was it.
Wow.
And my lawyer turned to me and said, don't get in any more trouble because I'm not helping you anymore. My lawyer was my brother-in-law. And I said, okay. And I felt pretty good about myself after that. Like, it was like one less thing. I'd straightened out shit with the tax man. Everything was sorted out. So you start to feel whole again. I didn't become an interventionist until, it's important to know this, I was 6 years into this. I get married, and what's that?
Sorry, did any of your legal trouble, interfere with your time going back and forth to South Beach?
Nothing.
No. Okay.
I
Good
got
for
everything
you.
here, except the weekend I was getting married. I only have at the Sagamore in upstate New York, I only have 150 people coming. They flagged me, and the guy came in. I said, I'm getting married. He said, well, you're going to have to do, and then I had to go get a background check and everything. And then again, God is doing for us, we're not doing. It's an expression, because if you do all your part in this and you leave it in the hands of whoever that is, things will work out all right. And I never went back to the border a few months later, because I was basically thinking I was never going back in the States. Yeah. I had all the paper done. I had gone through that peace bond, like the time, and the lady said, congratulations, you never have a problem again. She winked at me, and that was it. It was done.
Wow.
Today, I don't know if I would get through this. I would have to do like a lot more legal teas to do it. but it's been fine since. And I don't think I wasn't grateful that had happened. My business, like I said, I didn't start doing this. I get married 6 years into my recovery, meet a lovely girl from Westmount, get married. She's watching Intervention at night. She's in recovery too. And she's like, you know what? You're a hell of a lot more, because she would call it a cottage industry. I was working with her in marketing at the time. She said, you're taking more calls helping people than you are doing your job. You just do your job to feed you. You don't
Helping people in recovery, helping alcoholics
and I was like,
and
really,
addicts.
I said, I barely graduated from high school. I can't do it. And she did all the research. And she said, no, you can do this. And I went and got trained. And getting trained's one thing, and getting a bit of paper behind your name, because you need paper to get insurance. Like, there's a lot of liability here. And I went and got trained, and the guy was like venerable, the best, Earl Hightower and this Johnson. He said, like, you got what it takes. And I said, yeah, you say that to all the girls. And he said, I've never said that to anyone in my life. I've been training people for 20 years. So I felt kind of
This
good
is
about
training
that.
as an interventionist.
Yeah. And then, like, I didn't know is you got to become a student of the game. It's not. I want you to think of going to a front door and you're doing an act and you've prepared everyone, but it is, it's a surprise. And everyone's like, you're fucking ambushing me, and I'm and yelling and screaming. And I've never raised my voice in an intervention. I've been yelled at, spit at, pointed guns at, like everything happened to me. And I remain calm. And I go do my job. I've done it over 800 times. You do your job. But when I came into this, like, I find people see me and everyone sees the end product now. Like, look, he's doing well. There was so much work to get here.
Well, I would love to know that story, Bobby, of you decide to become an
Well, she sends me off. She sees it more than I do.
and you get trained.
Yeah.
And now what do?
And then I
do you
come home.
But do you pick up the phone? Do you
I'm
cold
smart.
call
Yeah,
people?
you do.
Do you really?
I'm calling. I'm like, I'm smart. I'm going to call like HR companies. They're going to need me. And then a friend of an old girlfriend of mine works at McKesson, who is probably responsible for more of the drug trade, like the opiates, than anyone else. But she says to me, she's the head of HR. And she says, they're never going to hire you. We're never going to call you from the executive office because the liability becomes ours. So I'd been wasting money there. And really, the reality is word of mouth, and you build it through a network of end users. End users are therapists, doctors, lawyers. And I really misguided in some of the ways of how to do it. And I don't want to be chasing an ambulance here.
No.
I don't want to be a carpetbagger. There's guys that do what I do, guys, and they'll say, like, your kid's going to die if you don't hire me. I've never said that in my life. I get to say who, when, how much, and how we're doing it. When someone calls me and tells me how I'm going to do my job, I'm saying, I'm really sorry, but I can't work that way. I work this way. And it's the honest way. It's the way it's supposed to be.
Do you remember your first?
Yeah, absolutely.
I would imagine.
And he's doing all right. He had a bit of. Here's what's crazy.
Was it
the first
scary?
one, yeah, it was. I was intimidated. And then it was my third that I went up the street, and it was in Westmount. And I came home, and I got my ass handed to me by the mother. It wasn't even the two kids I was there to work. I won't use any names. And I come back down the street. I said, well, I'm crazy. I just blew $100,000. I can't do this. And Fern, my wife at the time, was furious at me. She said, I did not marry this mouse. Go back up there. Some lady that worked in a mental hospital in the 50s and 60s told you how this works. That's not who you are. Go there and be Bob. And I'll never forget, she said, give her 2 barrels of Bob. You're good at that. And I was like, you're right. And I was like leaving there going, if I don't do it, I can't go home. It was like between us. And let's go back in there. And I went in there and said, lady, shut up. I forgot more about alcohol and drugs than you've ever known. So let's see. And I got to the
And you're helping her 2 kids?
Yeah. And both of them are in recovery now. And they're both
adult children?
Yeah, they're
I
adult
assume,
children, yeah. And they were both like, a lot of, unfortunately, people that are wealthy, people that have it easier, have a harder time with, they don't have distress tolerance. They don't know what it's like to hustle.
Well, I spoke earlier about the gift of desperation. When you've got substantial material resources to fall back on, I'm guessing that you don't get that gift of desperation as easily. Maybe.
And you often have an enabler in that just wants to make the problem go away, which is then making it worse. So make no mistake.
Do you keep in touch with your clients?
It's crazy. I follow up pretty well everyone.
You do,
and some
eh?
I don't hear from for long periods
Does
of time.
that scare you when you don't hear from them?
Only one. I was in. I got a call during year 1 of the pandemic in Mowata, Louisiana. You see that on the phone, and I knew Casey had died. I knew that call was coming. I knew it, and I picked up the phone, and the parents are like saying, "Thank you for bringing him back to us for a year," or stuff like that.
Wow.
And it's like, I'm like, oh God.
Bobby,
I guess, sorry, Tara. I was just gonna say, I guess that's inevitable.
Yeah.
Like there's not going to be a 100% success rate.
The success rate's there, but a relapse isn't. Like I can get them into treatment and make them do that. The case management, it's not coaching as much as it's case management. And I have a whole army of guys that work for me that manage cases. So to follow up. When I went to treatment, I came home and everyone's like, "Oh, he's out now. Let's poke him with the thing. Is he okay?" Like you're taking him out of that.
This is what I was going to ask you. Where do you remember a time, especially when you said you went to Montreal, Vancouver?
Yeah.
You were doing these little productions. The money was rolling in. You rented a house. Was there a time where you thought,
No.
good for you?
The
Okay,
first 2 years.
tempted is what I'm asking.
Turned down Crescent Street. We're a place where I didn't drink, really.
Yeah.
I was over on Mackay or on, I was
Right.
never on Crescent Street. I
Mackay or
turned
Bishop.
down, exactly. But I remember turning down the street thinking, my sponsor's a plumbing contractor here in Montreal. He's extremely gruff. Same guy for 19 years. He's not genteel with me by any means. And I called him up and said, "Do you think one day I might be able to go out for a date with a girl and have wine on the terrace?" And he said, "You never drank like a lady in your life, you idiot." The past, as soon as the thought was in my head, I got the hard reality of what it was, because there's this seduction that thinks that, "Hey, you know what? I'm okay now. Things are all right."
Yeah.
And
Well,
I've never
those are the most dangerous times. When things are good, in my experience, that's when you're at the greatest risk, when things are good.
And I've been steady for that.
It's fascinating to me because I never reached a point where my drinking, I think, got out of hand when I was in my.
We partied hard when we were younger, but you were able to dial it back.
Yeah, but I must confess, in my 50s, my drinking got really bad. But I was able to sort of pull back and go, okay, this, and also I had the love of a good woman that put me back on my feet. So it's hard for me to understand the battle that you guys go through.
It's not for. I can give it to you. Next time you turn the radio on in your car, turn it on full blast and tear off the fucking knob. What's the point? Once it's on, you ain't turning it off.
Gotcha.
And that's how I drink. It's a destination.
Gotcha.
It's interesting because that's how I drink.
But it's not a struggle now.
No. And I
close.
get that from you, having known you all these years. There is a piece about you. There is a what's the word? It's
serenity.
A serenity. Thank you. It's
Not always.
No.
Serenity
now. But by and large, you're a lot more serene and easygoing and accepting of and proud of.
Well, acceptance is, if you read the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous,
Page 417.
Acceptance is the key. And I would also like to say, while we're talking about this, and I think Bob would agree with this, a lot of people from outside look at AA and they go, "Oh, fucking AA. It's a religious cult." No, it's not.
No.
It's a spiritual program. It's not a religious program. It's a spiritual program. The difference is religion is dogma. If you do not do A, the consequences will be B. Whereas AA is a suggested program of recovery. This is what we suggest you do. This is what worked for us. If you want to do it, fantastic. If you want to go back out and experiment, there's the door. We'll be here when you come back. Moses didn't go up on the mountain with the 10 suggestions.
Right.
No, that's it. And nobody graduates.
I want to talk about signs, advice, and vice. I want to hear the vice story, but we have to stop to thank a couple more of our supporters, our sponsors, and that includes the people that have been with us from the very beginning. Jaguar, Land Rover, Laval. They're back, and I'm thrilled.
Yeah, Nino and Renato Di Cubelis and their marketing manager, Adrian McGrath, have been the biggest supporters of this podcast since the get-go. And
they didn't hesitate.
No, they didn't. Not for a minute. As a matter of fact, Adrian said to me, and I'll tell the story again about when I first approached Adrian about being a sponsor on the podcast. I called her up and I said, "Adrian, it's Ted Bird calling. I'm on the 13 and I just passed a beautiful Jaguar, and it made me think of you, not because it was a Jaguar, but because it was beautiful."
There you go.
All right.
Hi, Ted.
And she said, "Oh, bullshit. What do you want?" So she said right away, I said, we're looking for sponsors for the podcast.
Yeah.
And she said, I'll talk to Renato and Nino, and don't you dare approach
Anybody
another
else.
car dealership until you've talked at length.
Yeah,
with
and
us.
every time we do the podcast, we get a new car.
That's right. We're going after this one to get they give us a courtesy car,
Yeah,
so
they
I
do.
can
Yeah.
I can ferry Terry all around town. Adrian told me that they are fully stocked right now with Land Rover Defenders and with the Jaguar F-Pace, and now is the time to buy. If you buy before the end of the year, you can take advantage of manufacturer warranties. Bob, I know that you're a Land Rover Range Rover driver. I think you should try out the which F-Pace is it? Poseidon, the one with 550 horsepower?
Poseidon fell asleep.
No.
The Poseidon
The
Adventure.
F-Pace SVR. SVR, 550 horses.
Yeah.
I've actually, what's crazy is that there's one. I drive the big Range Rover now. They call it the long wheelbase. The joke at the dealership is, "Oh, it's the Lord of the Manor car." I don't know about that, but it's my third one. I love driving it. They're an inexperienced.
I heard you say, Bobby, it's the nicest vehicle you've ever driven,
Yeah,
eh?
I want you to get in it and drive it, any of you.
Yeah.
And people, you get in the seat and you're like, what the hell? Man, you can drive to Toronto in the blink of an eye. It's got a fantastic sound system. It's on an air ride, so it's really, really comfortable. And my car has that engine, so it's the same.
Okay.
Oh, it's the same engine as the
absolutely.
Jag?
Absolutely.
Yeah? Oh, I didn't know
it's
that.
the same
Yeah.
engine. They share
550 horsepower?
550 horsepower. It's got... it's a supercharged V8,
Yeah.
so it's really good on gas.
Pass anything on the road except a gas station?
Exactly. It's really good on gas. I don't really think of it that way, but it is some of the things the gifts of my sobriety have given me is a much better life, way better than I ever thought possible. I own a home. That was like insane to me, even stuff like that. And I bought in St. Henry in 2010, and my brother, who handles money for a living, now I got to take a shot at John, but I don't know if you can recover from living in St. Henry. My God, did that change? And
Did
I
that
remember
ever
the escapades that you were going through. I don't have high-rise buildings near me. It's
Good for
peaceful.
you.
Yeah, it's not Griffintown where the vertical integration is taken over.
Well, there's a Land Rover endorsement
I
from
love them.
someone who's... How many have you had?
This is my fourth one.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. LandRoverLaval.ca, JaguarLaval.ca, and thanks again to them for coming back on board as a sponsor.
And I know we always talk about family businesses, and back for another season are our friends at the Mersons, new generation of the Merson family that's now running it, Kara and Celso. And I love you got in touch with Kara. I think it was just last week, and you said, "Is there anything you want us to talk about?"
Yeah, give me some talking points,
Yeah.
Kara. And she sent me back a note. Same old, same old.
Same old, same old.
Same stuff you've been saying about us for 30 years.
Well, and it's the same stuff they've been doing for 30 years. That's why they've been around so long. We talk about it all the time. We're recording this as winter approaches. It's a place to store your winter tires. It's a place to buy winter tires. It's a place where you take your car when you have that knock you can't find, when you need an oil change, when you think the transmission might be slipping or your brakes are making a funny noise. You take it to a family that you can trust. They never, ever, ever do work that's unnecessary. And they've built this amazing reputation in Montreal that we've been talking about for as long as Ted and I have been together.
That was creepy.
Yeah, wasn't it though? And the Mersons, the comfortable waiting room, the familiar faces at the counter, it hasn't changed in a long time, and there's a reason for that. It works.
Yeah.
That's why people always seek out the Mersons.
Third generation family business around since 1970. Ben Merson started it. Mark Merson and Bonnie Merson continued it. And now Celso and Kara Merson.
MersonAuto.com, or if you want to visit in person, that's the best way to do it, by the way. I love that family. Just past the corner of St. Jacques and Cavendish.
And as Mark liked to say, you'll always find the owner at the counter.
That's right.
Yep.
Bobby, let's talk about, because I want to talk about or ask you questions about people that may be listening to the podcast and thinking, we've got a family member, blah, blah, blah. We'll get to that. I'm interested about what you talked about. I don't know if the mics were on when we talked about this.
About Vice?
About the Vice documentary. How did that come to pass?
Let's start first with the business, because the Vice came after the business was started, right?
It did.
Yeah. When and how did you start the business Hired Sobriety?
Well, I had been working for another outfit, and I was a privateer, which is like all of my employees except for 2 are people that come to me and work. They need the work. I bid it off, and then I vetted everyone that works for me. I pretty well trained 90% of everyone that works for me. But when I was working for them, I started getting these jobs and stuff, and this guy was basically you're like a broker to the recovery guy because he's getting the calls and the jobs. Once I had built a big enough paper route, I knew. But it's culminated in the Rob Ford deal, which they were looking for someone. I mean, we were all talking about
Rob
it. We were all
Ford being
new.
the former mayor of Toronto who had a substance abuse problem, and Bob became his sobriety coach.
I would have loved to seen either YouTube's faces when he went, fucking Mary, oh my God. I could have loved to have seen that.
Yeah, but I knew you were in recovery, so it made sense to me.
Yeah.
I was just like, holy Jesus, Bob Mary is Rob Ford's sobriety coach.
That story became an international story. It was on the late night talk shows almost every night.
You almost punched some guy out, didn't you?
Well, that's
Jimmy Kimmel had a ball with that story.
Jimmy was really good to him.
Was he?
And he was friends with him and kept in touch with him.
Wow.
I had a call. Matt Lauer was always in touch with him. And we had a guy from NBC that basically stayed there. It was such big American news. Don Wood, and you can look him up. He's a big producer for NBC and the Today Show. And I became friends with these guys because they were around. I did not know the 3-ring circus I was entering. I knew it was a big job, and I remember getting it. Like, there was an interview process. We went down there, and he wasn't in great shape when I went to that treatment center. I was like, holy shit, what am I doing here? And I, again, go back to the 2 barrels of Bob. I didn't hold back. He was in rough shape. He's in treatment. He's not taking it seriously. And I said, you're leaving here in 20 days. You're going to shit the bed. You think people are laughing at you now? I just let him have it. And I was the only guy. He told me afterwards that everyone else came in here and tried to fucking inside track me and kiss my ass because you were like mad at me. I said, yeah, I was mad that you had wasted my time. That was June 18th. So it was 12 days before he was getting out. And it was my wedding anniversary. That's why I remember the date. And I remember going up there and going, it was like the worst storm ever. And Muskoka's a fucking scrape to get to. I'm amazed that people we got a pretty good highway to go up north.
They do that every weekend.
That's
crazy.
Road.
Yeah.
And I remember getting there, and like I said, I got it in, and I let him have it. And I was driving back out in terrible weather, thunderstorm, lightning, everything. And I was behind the truck that had like a giant excavation truck, and a giant rock falls off the truck.
Christ.
And fuck, I banged right into it. The wheels busted, the rim, like the bottom table, the car. I had a brand new BMW X3, and it's like it's finished. It's got 3,000 kilometers on it. It's like furious. It's pouring rain. Like, where's the liquid drain? Oh, insane how mad I was. The phone rings, and it's my now ex-wife at Fern. Says, so what happened? I said, I got fucking mad. She said, you gave him the whole package. I said, yeah, I didn't hold any back. Just so she goes, so you probably got the job, right? I said, I don't know. I have no idea. So they had 2 phone numbers for me. And I was in that patch where they couldn't find me. And they called her and they said, we need him here on the 30th. So she knew before I did. And she goes, you got the job. So I was like, oh, okay, great. This is a big win for me. I had no idea it would be this big. Not a clue. But the day I'm supposed to leave, she's like, okay, we got to go to the airport. And I was like, yeah. I didn't want to go. I was like, fuck, it's on the news, on national news. He's on every night. He's the most Googled politician in 2014. And I'm like, Jesus, I'm going back for this. And I go back into Toronto, and I got woken up. I go in on the 29th, and I got woken up on the day of the 30th, and a bang on the door, and it's early. I'm talking before 6 a.m., and it's the 2 police officers from Toronto, and they come with us. They run a safety. They do all this. He's furious. I tell him this happens. He said, they had no right to do that to you. They wanted to know who I was, and it was a complete secret. I went off of Instagram. I wasn't on Instagram at that time. I was on Facebook. I took everything away from it. And we get out there, and I didn't want to go. I remember going, oh, shit, this is a shit show. And we went there, and there was like OJ's trial. They were following us in a helicopter from Muskoka back into Etobicoke. It was insane. The cars following. He had 24 hours cameras were around him all the time. And you're getting out of early recovery. It was hard. I just didn't know what I'd gotten into. And I was staying there, and this man snored, man. I mean, whoa. And I was like, oh my God, I'm living in this circus, and nobody knew who I was, and he wanted it that way.
Yeah.
The first day there, we're running through all these candidate protests, and people are yelling. On that documentary, you see, like, resign. That was the first day on the job, 100 degrees, and I must have walked 35 miles that day to all these different parades. And it seemed like it was nonstop weather, this, that. We went to, 12 events, and everywhere we go, there were people yelling, frothing at the mouth, screaming at him. And he's a guy just getting in his recovery. So I bonded with him. I was like, okay. And that night, we're in the office at Toronto City Hall, and I'm sitting on the couch like I'm trying to be invisible. And he says, I'm sitting with Don Wood from NBC, and he says, there's two guys at the back there. The guy on the right's name is Bob. He has full access to this office. He asks you for anything, give it to him. I don't want to hear anything. I don't want him to say he didn't do it. He needs someone to help him move stuff around, takes it to empty his bar, basically.
Right.
And he said he'll be here until further notice. And then all these people, Toronto's a big city, they're like, who the hell is this guy? Now they're trying, when you got the guy's ear, they're all want to know who you are. He did not say what I did, who I did. His brother knew, he knew, and Don did. And we just started there. And by day 6 is when I go into 1010 News, and Mike Ben Dixon's working there. And he's with John Moore. And I said, they're like, motherfuck. They're like, I said, dude.
Because they know you from Montreal.
And I'm like,
Right.
I work in anonymity, guys. You got to take it easy on me. Christ, he tweeted my name minutes later, Ben Dixon. I know who it is. And then my mom's phone's ringing. It became insane. 3 days later, I'm at an event. Some guy's heckling. Like, professional hecklers are yelling at him. Like, they're not part of normal. It's insane. I got this view of municipal politics, and maybe if someone gave a shit here in Montreal, we wouldn't have to eat out of fucking wooden spoons and have to beg for a bag at the drive-thru.
Right.
Fuck, I hate wooden spoons, wooden forks. Everything tastes like wood. I don't like wood. And and then I go to the grocery store. Look how much shit's packed in plastic, but we can't take it home in plastic. That would be wrong. Everything's packed in plastic. It's we live in an insane asylum.
Well, yeah, what it is, it's local politicians making themselves feel better.
Yeah.
At our expense.
I always think like, oh, that's my rule. Hey, je l'ai mon affaire. Okay, getting in a new tangent. But on the mayor of Toronto, I go to this thing, and this guy's yelling at my guy, and he's yelling shitty stuff to him. And I feel like, you know what? And I just get up to him, and I stepped in front of him. I didn't kick him. I was like, pushed him. Definitely, I vibed him. But the cops who are against him say, we saw you. You hit him. It was an assault. I'm like, are you kidding? And I just walked away. And I figured, well, I'm going to make myself invisible again. He came and got me. He was working out. He worked out like a dog. He was a really decent guy. He was lovely to me.
Rob Ford.
Yeah, lovely guy to me. And he said, nobody fucking died. They're going to, I remember the word, they're going to gin this up real good. He said, really good. And he goes, but in 24 hours, I will have done something so fucked up that they'll be on me again. Don't worry about it. Just stay put. I need you. And I was now, Hired Sobriety was born when that happened. We had it all ready to go, and we pressed play, and it went live, and I had no idea that it would be, people were calling me from everywhere.
So when you're with Rob Ford, what are you watching for?
I'm watching it for him, his mail, people were leaving Mickeys in his mailbox. People were mailing him crack cocaine. Absolute truth.
Are you kidding me?
No, absolutely. Everything was going on there.
Well, I shouldn't say it's unbelievable, but...
They were just awful to him. And it was a guy in his recovery, and he was lovely. He felt bad if he go to meetings because all of a sudden, Ted, the room started to fill because people were fucking Ford's here. He was a phenomenon in Toronto. I can't explain it.
This is the thing that you learned from your experience with Rob Ford that I've learned over the years. People forget these are human beings. Mm-hmm. And you may not agree with their political views, and you may not like what they're doing, but what has become of politics at all levels, especially the municipal and even national level, there's an ugliness now that you saw firsthand that's really disgusting.
Like, people are angered to the point of saying terrible things. He's with his kids. One day we're in the park and we're at another event, and some woman, a Mr. Sub cup and full of ice, and throws at him and hits him. And this guy is twinkle toes. I have a video of him dancing. He could move, man. He could move.
And he was a big man.
300 pounds.
Yeah.
And he ran. I took a line of pursuit. He had the biggest bodyguard ever, biggest man I've ever seen in my life to this day. And he went, I can't stop him. But he just grabbed this woman and he goes like, I have a fucking family. what are you doing?
Wrong with you, yeah.
I have a family.
Yeah.
And she was like, you threw this at me. You made me feel like I was garbage. Like, I'm a human being.
Yep.
I didn't mean to. What do you mean you didn't mean to? You whipped this thing at me, this like 2-pound big gulp at me. And I remember the security guy said, if he snaps, he'll kill someone. And he didn't. He was nothing but, it was almost comical that the version you got and what you saw, like when pictures of him came out high and this and that, because I've never been there. I've been to that same spot. I've been that crazy. Thank God that they didn't have iPhones when I was using, because I can't even imagine what
I
my
know
life would
people
look
don't
like.
want to hear this, but there are people that I know in Toronto who will tell you the Ford family are kind and good and decent and have big hearts.
Yeah, I know, and
I know
didn't,
people
but that
don't
was
wanna
my
hear that.
experience.
Yeah.
That was my experience. I don't.
Did he
like I
die
said-
sober, Bob?
Yeah,
Oh, that's good.
And
I'm glad to hear
they
that.
didn't like. I didn't have a great relationship with Doug. Doug used to, who he called Jones. So they called his brother Jones.
Why?
I don't know. Jones. They called each other that. It's funny. I became friends with a lot of political advisors. Most of them are conservative. Most I got, and some of them are really. They're still my friends today. They were good guys, and my he used to say, "A liberal's helping me. What the fuck is going on here?" Listen, and we had a banter going. He'd call me up and he goes, "I'm gonna get a rock bigger than your head, and I'm gonna crush a 26 ounce." I'd say, "There's not much I can do there." Call me in the morning. This is your fucking advice, and he was laughing because I gave him, and the people that were close to him, like his attaché and stuff, said it was wonderful to see you guys have a relationship where he actually trusted someone, because everyone wanted something from him. I just wanted him to feel better and get better. And I was there the morning they told him the news, and it was long before you guys knew it. And he got given, I was there when the doctor came in. 3 months at best, at worst, 6 months at best. He was such a fucking willful guy. I lived 18 months.
Wow.
But he got given, like, you ain't coming out of that type of cancer.
Yeah.
All you have to do is Google the type of cancer. The survival rate's like 2%. And I think that was a young guy, died at 46.
Yeah.
So he
with
said
kids.
to me, he said, I don't want anyone else but you, because I did 44 days of a day off, which is mind-boggling. But he said to me, I'll make you big in your business. And he knew it. He knew it before I did.
Yeah.
He goes, because I'll do what you say. It's like, what about this guy? It was like Murphy Brown trying to get a new secretary. I don't like the looks of him. Every person that came in to replace all these A-list guys from LA were coming in and from the States. Fuck him. His eyes are too close together. I was like, seriously. And then I got one day off and I came back to Montreal. I was exhausted. I went and got a good meal at Dave McMillan's place at Liverpool House, and I went back the day after.
Wow.
And I got back on that because he was in an election.
Is there a competition in your business?
There, for me, no. In this country, no.
Yeah.
I've rose to a level that is, I don't have to chase work. It comes to me.
No, but you said guys came in from LA, and I wonder.
There's plenty of it now.
Yeah, I picture a lot of guys pitching. Like I can do this and I can do that, and
yeah, I'm going to undersell what I can do all the time. I'm going to deliver what I can do, and like I said, it's been. I dress differently. My ex was a high-level creative. She hired Sobriety with a really good vision of how the marketing would be.
Right.
And I remember her said, she goes, this is a drive-by shooting, man. We're going to ruin this business. I said, why? She goes, because this is all crap. They look like pizza boxes with all these numbers, and I can do this, and just make it clean, streamline, and did it. People think I got lucky in this, and it's commensurate to how lucky I got is how much work I did.
how hard you work.
And I did a lot. I still work like a dog. I'm constantly on the road.
I was at dinner with him last weekend, and all he did was work.
All during dinner. You were in South Beach. Yeah.
The phone
he was
rings.
on his phone the whole time.
I'm handling 26 cases right now.
Wow. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you this, and I'm sure you've been asked before, and I'm sure you've heard the whispers from the rooms. It's said that we should freely give back what was given to us.
And they are absolutely right. But I don't do you know me from my recovery.
Yeah.
You know me from my home group. We share the same home group. We are, you see how generous of spirit. I don't do a lick of business. I never have in my life. In my life, have I ever done business in that room? That room is sacred to me. I'm getting guys there's a half a dozen guys at my group that I intervened on them, They ended up liking me and gravitating towards me in Montreal, and that was it. That's what I know. So it wasn't given to me. What I do as a professional, and I'm trained and I've got all the paper. I'm a Johnson model master's level interventionist. I am a coach that has credentials. Like, you need certain licenses and stuff.
Wow.
I have all of the above. But there's a lot of people trying to do it.
You're at a place now where your phone rings, you're not calling out.
No.
Right, gotcha.
No.
Okay. I want to get to the advice thing. We've been at this for longer than I thought. Poseidon just waved at me.
I'm long-winded.
And that's okay. Hi, Poseidon.
Hi, Poseidon.
And also, I know there's people probably listening to this who may want some tips, some signs. So let's get to that. And say thanks to the last two sponsors on our list today. And I'm going to start with a new company that called me out of the blue called Accutech Electric. And I spoke to Tom and Trish on the phone. And like usual, Ted, I was like, do you guys know who we are and what knuckleheads we are? Like, are you sure you want, did you dial the right number? And Tom...
I'll stand in a puddle of water and change a fuse box. You know that, right?
Tom is a second-generation master electrician. He runs Accutech Electric. Again, a family-run business. They've been at it for over 25 years. And I had a long conversation with Tom and Trish about the way they approach their business, the way they approach their employees, the way they like to treat their employees, the way they like to treat their clients. And I thought, this all sounds familiar to you and I, Ted, because these are people we like to speak on behalf of. They do residential, they do industrial, they do high-quality custom work. They can give you estimates. And, of course, I said to them, one of the things you don't want to cheap out on is an electrician when you need electric work.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it, but I know enough about it that you don't want your house catching fire. They like to help their clients save money. They like to talk, and they really believe in education and transparency. And I really, really loved these people, and I loved their mission statement. And you can find them, Accutech Electric. Our brand new sponsor. They can talk to you about generators. They can talk to you about, like I said, residential. They can talk to you about switching from gas to electricity. All of that stuff that you may need if you run a business or you are redoing a home or any of that. They can look after. Accutech Electric. You go to Accutech. That's ACUTECH.ca.
Let me do the segue. And once you know that your house is properly wired and you can sleep safely without any concern whatsoever, you'll want to go to Matelas Bonheur.
Yes, you will.
To get a mattress for
Yes,
that good
you will.
night's sleep. Mattress and bedding too, right?
Mattress
they have
and bedding,
I
yes.
need bedding. I need to go see them.
Yeah, duvets. They have their own line of linens, pillows. You need, pillows. Pillows, I find, are a tough thing to buy because you pick up a pillow and you're not sure. I don't know. Anyway, they're the experts. Don't
I need
listen to
something
me.
that soaks up the drool. What do they got?
This may be one of the questions that
Well,
you
there
get
you
asked.
go. Yeah, they're sleep experts
Yeah,
after all.
they're
What are you looking at me like that for, Bob? What, am I the only one who drools when he sleeps?
Matelas Bonheur are a family-run business. It's another one. I think all of our sponsors are family-run businesses. And they've been at it for so long. And I keep saying this on every podcast. They're passionate about sleep. So when you go in, you get greeted with kindness and a smile and nice manners. They'll ask you a couple of questions about, what are you sleeping on? How do you like to sleep? Do you sleep on your side? They're not getting personal.
I don't know how I sleep. I'm asleep.
Yeah, but do you sleep?
You're either a side sleeper or a
Side
back
sleep.
sleeper.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a side sleeper.
Yeah, and
He drools. He's pillow first to pillow.
So you'll get asked those questions when you go to one of their locations. And the other thing I like is they'll steer you to a couple of mattresses they think you'll like, and then they leave you alone. They don't follow you around and pressure you because it's a tough decision buying a mattress. The stores are beautiful. The people are amazing. Matelas Bonheur are locations in and out of the greater Montreal area, and you can find them online, matelasbonheur.ca. Bobby Marrier is our guest. sobriety coach and interventionist. Did I do that right?
Yep.
Okay. Bobby, there may be people listening to the podcast who have been toying with watching a family member spin out. There may be, people who have questions. What can you say to somebody who has someone close to them struggling? What do they do? What are the signs? And when do you know it's time to make that call? Or do you?
I mean, a lot of times it takes a long time before it makes it, but I tell families really easily, who's running the treatment plan? The sickest person in the equation is running the treatment plan, and you want to know why you're not getting a result. Because the addict should not be running this treatment plan. So having a fresh set of eyes, and start with an addiction therapist. I go to families like, oh, he's been going to a family therapist for 6 years. Do you go to a Chinese restaurant to fix your car? Because it's the same thing. I tell people that line all the time. I'm like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. So, like, the addiction therapist is going to know what the hell he's looking at. If I had been to an addiction therapist, I went to therapy for 15 years. I don't know how many different, maybe a half a dozen different therapists. And I told them my bullshit narrative, 30% of the truth. The rest was to fit my narrative, to fit my behaviors and all of the dumb shit I was doing. And that's how I operated. And if I look at families now that are suffering, like, get honest. Keep an open mind of what this can look like. They all believe, like a lot of people believe, you can forcibly confine your loved one. You can't. It has to be a willing thing. But you bring a group of people together, and this is the biggest show of love and concern you can do. Like, listen, it's not working. Usually, I said pre or post jackpot, a DUI, conjugal stuff, a fight, a loss of job, stuff like that. Or an inability. They're always the same. There's a cycle that happens. Oh, my life would be different if this happened. My girlfriend had bigger boobs. I had a nicer car. This. It's always someone else's fault but the person, what we call the identified patient. And if you can start to have a dialogue that looks like we're allowing no experts in, we're allowing the sick person to be the expert, that's what you do. And then if you're willing, Ted, it's pretty simple how you get this. I tell people this all the time. You need 3 things. You need to be honest, you need to keep an open mind, and you need to be willing. Those 3 things are met, you're good.
Can you force someone to go into treatment?
You can in the great state of Florida. They have a thing called the Marchman Act.
Okay.
People take vacations to Florida with their troubled young ones, and then you enter in with the sheriff. And I did one last week, and you enter in with the sheriff, and here's a mandate that you're going into treatment. Yeah, they can't leave, and they're forcibly kept there. If they leave the premises, they will be taken to a state-run psych ward, which usually is a pretty good motivational seminar, because once they go there for a few days, I'll go back. And that's really how it works. But in Canada, there's not much. And we're looking at a lack of services in this country.
Do you mean more along the lines of, can you psychologically coerce them? Can you talk them into it?
Yeah, because so many people you talk about, there's a DUI or there's, you get into a physical confrontation or a fight and you wake up and think, oh my God, what have I done? But what really stuck with me was very profound in this today. What you said, Bobby, was you woke up from an overdose and said, I just miscalculated.
Yeah.
Like,
that's the insanity
that's what everybody does,
and you're
right?
like minimalizing and deflecting anything that comes towards you.
And that's what an addict or a drunk does.
That's a normal thing to justify your behavior.
Yeah, and I guess it comes to a point where you just think, I've had enough.
Yeah, and to me, it was so much easier once I went.
Yeah.
I was like, I should have been here 15 years ago.
Yeah, I wish I would have done this sooner.
I wish I had done this sooner. And that's what I can tell people. I've never met someone that goes through the process and does the work, Ted. And Ted talked about it. You can't stay sober by osmosis. The quitting of drinking or the quitting of whatever negatively impacting your life without the inside work will never last. I see, he had a problem a few years ago. Now he only drinks on Tuesdays. Like, pack a lunch. This is going to go sideways.
Yeah.
And people want to believe that. They're astounded. What do you mean you can never drink again? Like, it was a daunting task. I remember looking at people at AA meetings. They're all full of shit. These lying sacks of shit. No one's doing this. That's how I thought. I was so negative in the head.
It's funny, because I look back on the days when we were out all the time, and I just think to myself, Yeah, that was that chapter of our lives. Like today now, I think...
Except for the person that has a problematic drinker.
Exactly. Yeah,
like I said, take the radio dial off and then try and say, I want to close it with my mouth. It's not going to work. I think that's, it's important, right? And people are in misery. It's causing families pain. It's causing work pain. It is the number one offender here. Canada is 50 people a day die of substance abuse disorder, of which more than 80% is from alcohol.
Wow.
And then another 13 are, like, these numbers are really clearly set, that is your doctor's your drug dealer, and 3% are illegal drugs.
Wow.
And we talk about the Vancouver Lower Mainland has had 4,000 deaths this year.
Yeah, it's, I've been out in Vancouver now for 2.5 years, and it's a whole other kettle of fish out there. It's
coming here.
Really
it's coming,
ugly, and it's coming
it's
this
moved
way.
west to east, and it's now arriving here. We had 8 deaths in one day here a few weeks ago, and like, people say, well, what are your thoughts on this? What's going to happen is accidental poisonings. I'm going to wrap it up here, is that these aren't drug addicts. 3 sorority girls got some Xanax, thought, hey, man, what's going to go wrong? We'll get a little buzz on, turbocharge it with some alcohol, and there's fentanyl in it, and they're all dead.
Jesus
and now, are they
Christ.
drug addicts?
No.
They're kids that made mistakes, and that's what's coming. So we're going to have to take a long, hard look at legalizing drugs that we never thought would be possible, because it'll stop poisonings from happening,
Bobby, this is an unbelievable story, and I take my cap off to you. I'm not wearing a cap, but if I was wearing one, I would take my cap off and doff it to you. It's an unbelievable story, and thanks for sharing it. I really, really appreciate it.
Before we let him go, let's do a tweet sheet, shall we?
You want to end on the tweet sheet?
Yeah, just to go out on a laugh.
Okay.
I do something on my radio show called the tweet sheet, where I take 3 funny tweets from Twitter, or X as it's now called, and I come across ones that you can't use on the radio.
Right.
Because they're too saucy. So we save them for the podcast.
Okay.
And I brought 3 here today that
Very
I
good.
think you guys might enjoy.
Okay.
Here's one from Matt Radsey. Taking a humongous shit in someone else's bathroom and feeling guilty over it, even though it seemed like it had to be done at the time. Call me Oppenheimer.
I've done that. And it's like quiet time. I'm like, do you think anyone realizes I'm still here?
Can anybody hear the Glade spraying?
From at Robert Bow. Fuck, I missed church again. That's like 40 years in a row.
Yep. Guilty.
And one more from at Slice of Heck. I guess I'm just a hopeless romantic, I say, fucking your wedding cake.
Oh, he's lovely.
Hey, his profile picture, he's smoking a pipe. You don't see pipes much anymore, do you?
You
The
don't,
corn
no.
down pipe, especially. Yeah. MacArthur kind of.
That's right, General
had
MacArthur
one, but other
smoked the
than
corn
that,
cob pipe.
Guys, thank you for
Listen,
putting up with
thank
me,
you,
and it's been
Bobby.
good catching up.
It's so much fun and so fascinating. What an interesting story. Thank you so much. And Poseidon, thank you. Poseidon is
My pleasure, dear son.
our tireless producer. The Standing By Podcast, Season 6, Episode 1. Done.
Standing By, the Terry and Ted podcast has been brought to you by the UPS Store Canada. The UPS Store near you is locally owned and operated by a member of your small business community.